Hello and welcome to the show, and this kicks off a brand new series, and it's all about this fellow, Phillip Henry Sheridan, or at least his namesake. He was once described by Abraham Lincoln as a brown, chunky little chap with long body, short legs, not enough neck to hang him, and such long arms that if his ankles itch, he can scratch them without stooping. During the American Civil War, Phil Sheridan enjoyed a rapid rise to Major General and a close association with General-in-Chief Ulysses S. Grant, who transferred Sheridan from a command of an infantry division in the Western Theater to lead the Cavalry Corps of the Army of the Potomac in the East. In 1864, he defeated Confederate forces under General Jubal Early in the Shenandoah Valley, a campaign that became known as the Burning, as he destroyed the economic infrastructure of the valley and is documented as one of the first uses of scorched earth tactics. In 1865, his cavalry pursued General Robert E. Lee, and he was instrumental in forcing the Confederate Army surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. Fast forward a little bit, post-World War II, the U.S. Army was looking for a light tank to succeed the Walker Bulldog. This new light tank was to be capable of being landed by parachute and to swim across rivers. And it was to be armed with the technically advanced but troublesome M81 152mm gun launcher, which fired both conventional ammunition and the MGM-51 guided anti-tank missile. The M551 Sheridan entered service with the U.S. Army in 1967 at the urging of General Crichton Abrams and was rushed into combat in South Vietnam January 1969. The opinions of the crews of the Vietnam-era Sheridans were mixed at best, and senior commanders, well, their views were often very negative. This was largely due to the high loss rate of the Sheridans and the casualty rate among crews. Landmines and RPGs that would damage the M48 Patton tanks tended to destroy the lighter weight Sheridans. On the positive side, the Sheridans had several advantages. It did not get stuck in the mud as often as the 52-ton M48, nor did its throws tracks as often. This alone was enough to win the favor of the tank crews. The lightweight and high mobility proved its worth, and the gun proved an effective anti-personnel weapon when used with either the M657 HE shell or the M625 canister round. Okay, enough history, let's get on to the project. Well, let's start off the new project with the unboxing scene. This is the Ryefield kit of the Sheridan, and this is actually a 2-in-1 kit. Available in this box are the parts to do either the earlier version of A1 of the Sheridan or a later version, the upgrades that were done throughout the 1980s, the TTS version. A little bit word of advice here, just pay attention because it's not necessarily clear, depending on which variant you're doing, which part of the instructions you need to listen to or pay attention to, so be aware of that. Of course, a couple of color plates towards the end, and along for the ride will be a Voyager photo etch set. Initially, I intended to use quite a bit of this, and I'll go into that in just a second here, but I kind of changed course along the way, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. Well, the construction begins with the turret, and specifically the commander's cupola and the machine gun mount, and this is by far the most complex assemblies within the kit. And of course, I decided that I want to add a little bit of that shiny crown on top, being that photo etch using the Voyager set. So that's what I started off doing here, just putting together the gun mounts and the gun shields and such like that. It didn't take me too long to realize that, you know what, the kit parts look pretty darn good, and this is going to be a lot of work. As much as I like the shiny bling on the top of the turret there, I think this was a better idea. We'll just regroup a little bit. Be careful here. Like I said, this is one of the more complex parts of the assembly. A lot of little sub-assemblies to put together before you actually do put everything together. So just beware at that point. But once you have everything, those sub-assemblies put together, it's just a matter of, like I said, just putting it into one bigger assembly. And I have to admit that this looks really, really nice. There's a few pieces of photo etch there that came from the Voyager set. You can see those around the vision blocks. And I did upgrade the machine gun a little bit with some of the Voyager set as well. All in all, it's a really nice, like I said, the kit parts are really nice. Big area that I decided to torture myself with is to replace all the molded on tie-down loops along the turret especially, and replace those with the Voyager photo etch. And yep, there's a bunch of little guys right there. Can't even see them on screen. But those all need to be cut out, and then I made a little jig here, just a piece of styrene that's just allows me to kind of bend and give a little bit of definition to each of these loops. And after about, a good couple of hours, I end up with, 8 billion of these little guys here ready to put onto the side of the turret. Now that I have my stash of little brass tie-downs, I need to remove all those molded on tie-downs that are on the turret. And for that, this little chisel comes in very, very handy. Just need to be a little bit careful so you don't gouge into the plastic. And then for a little bit of quick cleanup, that fiberglass pen that I used on soldering does a great job of cleaning up any plastic residue. And then it's just a matter of taking your time, I'm using a little bit of PVA glue to secure these in place, and adding those little tie-down loops and some of these other little brass fittings that go onto the turret sides. Slowly but surely, I work my way around the turret, adding the little brass pieces here and there. And, by the end, this looks pretty okay. I've got a little bit more to do, but I need to give my eyes a rest. Well, as I'm taking my little break here, let me take this moment just to remind you to please hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And also that little bell, hit that, and it lets you know when new videos are being released. Also remember that we have that new little icon below, that little $sign, the super thanks. And that's just basically a virtual tip jar. And if you'd like a little bit more content, I do have a Patreon page, and the link for that is below. Patreons enjoy photographs of these ongoing projects, early viewing of these video releases, and we do have a Discord server where we have a very lively chat. So please check it out and consider joining. Okay, returning back to our project, the stowage basket at the rear of the turret is pretty much the last thing to be installed here. And for that, I have a little bit of photo etch. This came from the kit. And what's become my usual kind of MO here, I just want to put a little bit of blackening or burnishing fluid on these photo etch parts just to dull them down so that I don't have to cover them up with a lot of paint and clog up any of that fine mesh pattern. And then once those parts are all cleaned up and dried, then it's just a matter of securing them into the plastic here, and that's just done with a few very small drops, pin drops, matter of fact, of CA glue. The last thing to do here is just glue the little stowage basket to the rear of the turret, and we're ready to move on. Well, moving downstairs, start working on the wheels and the tracks here, and so just adding a little bit of glue to the road wheels and adding those onto the suspension arms, just making sure everything's nice and aligned. Next come the tracks, and I'll be using the kit tracks here, and they are the link and length variety, but unfortunately, pretty much every link has a bit of a sinkhole or ejector pin mark on them. So just a drop of Mr. Surfacer 500 into the hole, allow that to dry, and then just come back and scrape them off and make them nice and flush. Not a big deal, but it does take a little bit of time. Generally, I'm not a big fan of link and length tracks. My experience has been either they seem to have one too few or one too many links into them, and the fit is poor. But in this case, I guess Ryefield did it right, or I got lucky, and they fit just fine. And because I'm thinking ahead and I've learned my lesson the hard way, I did not glue on the idler nor the road wheels, so the tracks can be removed for ease of painting later on. Well, we're getting closer to the finish line on the construction here. The upper hull does not have very many pieces, so it goes on very, very quickly. Matter of fact, this little tool holding rack is probably the most complex assembly on this entire part of the upper hull. The kit provides a few photo etch pieces for these locker stowage lids, I guess they are. And of course, we have some photo etch as well for the screens over the engine deck. And those were once again treated with the burnishing fluid to blacken or darken their color. And with that, we're closing in at the end of the construction phase. Like I said, this is a nice kit. The details are fantastic, but the instructions, they are confusing. And so please pay very careful attention as to which variant you decide to work with, the A1 or the TTS versions. Do a little bit of studying along the way, making sure that you're following the right path. Also, I will say that some of the kit's parts, the locations are vague at best. There's not a lot of positive notches or pinholes or things like that, so there's a little bit of guesswork there, and so alignment in certain areas can be an issue. So a little bit of dry fitting, test fitting is always a good idea. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode, the construction phase. Enjoy these little bit of final photographs. The next episode is all about painting and weathering. This vehicle is going to be portrayed in a reference that I found from Operation Just Cause, which was 1989, 1990, the invasion of Panama. So that's something to look forward to, some interesting camouflage there. And of course, the weathering. So again, if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you like this channel, also hit that like and subscribe button. And if you like further content, please consider joining the Patreon page. Until the next time, happy modeling, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.